Hey, everybody. So excited for you to listen to today's amazing interview with my good friend, Brian K. Wright. Brian is one of the reasons why I have so many best-selling books. He helped me with my first LinkedIn book, and he is absolutely a master at really explaining why it's so important to have a book, but most importantly, how to write your first book. Second, we are reopening the doors or making our LinkedIn virtual accelerator program available now. There's actually a special. Anyone who uses the link in the description of this episode to purchase our LinkedIn accelerator program, which goes over how to set up your profile, searching, connecting, messaging, closing calls, providing content, posts, videos, articles, discussions in groups, polls, LinkedIn story, everything. In under 2 hours, you will learn it all. Anyone that purchases the program between now and Sunday morning, you actually get a free 30-minute coaching session with me. It's $1,000 value for free. And you also get a LinkedIn checklist and also a LinkedIn content calendar to help you show up on the platform more authentically to build your business. So remember to sign up for the LinkedIn Accelerator program. It's brand new, just re-recorded all the videos a month and a half ago. So it's all on the latest new additions to LinkedIn. It's in the description of this episode. Enjoy this incredible interview with my good friend, Brian Wright. Networking and marketing made simple is for you, the business owner who has a product, a service, or a message that you believe in. My name is Scott Aaron, and each week we'll take a behind-the-scenes look into the real-world marketing and networking tactics and strategies for getting what you have in front of you to a lot more people. Thanks for spending time with me, and now let's get started. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Networking and Marketing Made Simple. Super excited about today's episode for a number of reasons. Number one, it's another great interview that I have lined up for you. But number two, with someone that has been instrumental in my journey, not only in becoming a best-selling author, but really getting myself out there as the expert authority in the space of which people consider me a LinkedIn expert. If it wasn't for this individual, it wouldn't have happened. And Brian Wright, who's with me today, is the founder and owner of obviously his own company, but an amazing event called Authorpreneur Live, which I've been a keynote speaker on 2 occasions. Success Profile Radio, which is his podcast that he's had for over, I think, 10 years now. Is that right, Brian?
Coming up on 10 years in January.
Coming up on 10 years, but also he's got his own magazine. And Brian is the epitome of giving back to others and taking the spotlight off of himself and putting it onto other people. And when I was going on this journey of writing my first best-selling book, I reached out to Brian because I knew that's what he did, and he helped people put books together, whether it was ghostwriting or helping people take the ideas and the manuscripts and the transcripts and putting it together so it could get out there. And people may recognize his name because he actually wrote the foreword of that book as well. So with that being said, Brian Wright, welcome to today's episode.
Thank you, Scott. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. And I've really enjoyed our journey together. This has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And it's a couple years in the making. So I briefly went over a lot of the things that you do now, but it hasn't always been that way. So talk a little bit about of your journey in entrepreneurship, and more importantly, what was that moment that the spark was lit for you that has sent you down the path that you're currently on?
Yeah, I actually have a teaching background. So I did the whole go to school thing, get a job, and there's nothing wrong with that. I found eventually, which I'll get to, that I just realized I can't work for someone else anymore. I prefer to work on my own time. I enjoy my time freedom. I like making my own rules. I find that when I work for other people, I mean, they have to have rules, but some of them are stupid. I just I just don't want to follow other people's rules. But I had a teaching background. I taught at a 2-year business college in Lincoln, Nebraska. I spent 8 years there after growing up in Iowa and doing college there. I got my graduate degree in adult education at Nebraska. And while I was teaching, I did resume writing. So that was really my first, more or less, adventure in entrepreneurship. And I enjoyed that. People asked me, is it lucrative? Well, it pays my bills. But that question kept coming up over and over again. Is it lucrative? Is that even lucrative? And the answer to that had to be no. It got me by, and that was it. And I needed that plus my teaching job to get by. And I thought, well, this is unsatisfying. And after a while, I just lost the fire for it. I enjoyed helping people find jobs because that part was fulfilling, but I didn't want to just spin my wheels and just wonder, when is the next $75 or $100 client going to come my way? Something like that, you have to deal in volume. And when you're in a volume-based business, if the train stops, you are SOL. So you just have to pivot and do something else. So I moved out to Arizona. And I didn't want to do the entrepreneurship right away. I felt like I needed to get my feet firmly on the ground. Well, the call center world was the easiest point of entry. So that's where I was for a long time. And I was so overqualified for a lot of the places I was at. But I had to pay some debt down. I did finally find a call center where I was making some really good money, and I advanced in the company, ended up being a floor supervisor, ended up doing payroll eventually. There were a couple places where I ended up being the trainer, and those positions were created for me because I was doing really well. And management said to me, how are you doing this? You need to teach everybody else how to do this. So I did that. And eventually I ended up working for a real estate agent here in the Phoenix area, and I was his outbound caller. I call myself marketing help. He called me an inside sales rep. I wasn't selling anything. I was just setting appointments. And whenever someone would list to buy or sell, I would get a small cut out of it when the house was bought or sold. And so he called me the best caller I ever had. But I started my business on the side. In fact, I started my radio show in January 2012, not having any idea how I was going to make hay out of this at all. I just wanted to interview people who I looked up to and thought I could learn a lot from. And then I started writing books. When I was teaching, I taught English, composition, public speaking, and business math, and occasionally current events. So I figured if I was teaching other people how to write their papers, I can certainly help them write their books. I already had my first book out by then. It's a student leadership book. But I realized, I wanted to build something. And again, I didn't really know exactly what it would look like. I didn't know it would look like what I'm doing now, but I just got started. And I just started declaring to the world, this is what I do. Even though I hadn't written a book for someone else before, I'd written my own. So I had the confidence that, yes, I can write a book. Well, the first client who came to me said, well, Brian, you don't have a portfolio and I need help. So how about you coach me, not write it for me, but coach me for free, and I'll give you a testimonial. Sometimes you have to do that when you're starting, because if people ask to see your work and you don't have any, you better have testimonials. And sometimes that means doing a free thing. So, and it wasn't very time intensive. This guy was a brilliant client. He probably cranked out his entire manuscript in the space of 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, he was motivated. So it didn't take long. And I thought, I can do this. I can totally do this. And so it just built from there. And I just started telling people, I help people write their books. It took a while to latch on, but now I have a pipeline of people who are waiting to work with me. And that's great. And we got to work together, and I enjoyed our project a lot. I help entrepreneurs who want to get their message out to the world, and entrepreneurs who want to leverage a book to build their business further. That has spun out into virtual events. And you mentioned Authorpreneur Live. We've done 3 of those. I would love to do an in-person live event now that the world is opening back up again. And I would love for it to jive somehow with the 10-year anniversary of my radio show, which would be next January. That would be really amazing. I think the possibilities are awesome. So those wheels are spinning in my head and thinking about who I would want to speak. And I would probably do it here in Phoenix. Who wouldn't want to come to Phoenix in January, right? I think it's a smart idea to do your first event in the city you live in, because then you don't have to fly somewhere and meet people you've never met, all that. So that's where my journey is now. So I help people write their books. I do my radio show, and I also publish a monthly magazine called Success Profiles Magazine. I invite contributions from people. You've written for my magazine before. And now I've even spun that off into something else, and I produce magazines for other people. So I've got a client who runs a networking organization here in Arizona. I've done a quarterly magazine for them for 2 years. And so we've done 8 of those. And the next one's going to be in a couple months from now, September. So, and I've got another client that I completed work for earlier this year, and 2 more that are in progress. And so I'm branching out. So what does all this mean? All the balls are spinning in the air. It means I need help. So I hired my first VA a month ago, 6 weeks ago, actually. She's helping me do a layout for a client's book, and we're very close to being done with that. She's doing an animated explainer video for me. She's done some transcription for me, and now I need to find new things for her to do because she's going to be done with the thing I just asked her to do. We'll probably have some revisions, but now I need to figure out what else do I have to do for her next. And that's the cool thing about having help, is now there's an obligation to keep someone busy so they can feed their families too. And so now it's a matter of, what can I have this person do that I don't want to do, don't have time to do, don't have the skill set for? My next task is to find someone who can offload some of the things that I am doing to free me up. I'm still doing all the same things I was doing. I'm just having this person do things that I don't have time for. It's a plus, but I need to level up even more. And I've got huge, massive goals, and that's going to revolve having a team, not just one extra person.
Yeah, when you expand, and Nancy and I can completely relate to that, is that you get to a certain point where you do require help, and you should know how to do a lot of things, but it gets to the point where the things that you know how to do that are too time consuming, you can then outsource to someone else. Now, my big question is this, obviously you found your path through all the things that you did. And it's interesting because when people are listening to this and they're hearing, well, he spent years at a call center, but I know the power of that, because obviously when you talk to a lot of people, when you are in a position where you're teaching people, because you were still a teacher, you were just doing it in a different capacity.
Right.
So what do you think, being a professor at a 2-year university that also spun into you working at various call centers and climbing the ranks within those organizations to what you're doing now, what do you think was the reoccurring lesson that was carried from one phase of your business career to another that has kind of landed where you are now?
When you work in a call center, you deal with all different types of people. And so it's excellent practice. And usually the hours are shorter. Sometimes it's 4 hours, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's a full day, but you have time to do a side hustle too. And so that's what I did. And I think just the idea of teaching, whether it's in an academic environment or whether it's in a corporate environment, was really a valuable experience, because when you have the power to help somebody do what they need, it's very gratifying. It really is. And so I'm just really glad I can do it more or less on my own terms now. In fact, I do remember being in one particular call center. I was standing in the middle of the break room with one of my coworkers, and there were side conversations going on all over the room. And I finally looked at him and said, "Frank, I don't belong here, do I?" He says, "No, I have no idea why you're here. I don't know why you're working here." I'm like, wow, that's kind of bold. It got me thinking. And I ended up not being there much longer after that. So that was actually a really nice moment to experience, just to have that validation that, you know what, I really am meant for something else in my life. I think I was just afraid for a while, afraid to take that step into the unknown, because I was thinking, what if it doesn't work? But the better question would have been, what if it does?
Exactly. And the unknown zone is one of those areas where people really struggle, because no one wants to see themselves as a failure.
Right.
But any entrepreneur knows that you're going to fail many more times than you will succeed, because your failures are the ones that actually lead to the successes, because you have to fail in order to learn how to do things the right way in order to succeed.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you look at professional baseball players. If you get a hit 3 out of 10 times you're at bat, you are going to make millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you'll be an all-star. Your career will be celebrated when it's over with.
And that same person that's getting 3 out of every 10 hits is also getting out 7 out of 10. So
Yeah.
it's something from Jim Rohn. He says that, the highest paid, baseball players hit 300, but also out of those 10 at bats, they're striking out or popping out or grounding out 7 times.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of perspective. Now, my first best-selling book, the LinkedIn book for network marketing, it was released in February of 2019. But what people don't realize is we started working on that in May of 2018. It took us nearly 9 months to put together.
Yeah.
And foundationally, it was the catalyst for everything that Nancy and I are doing now within our company.
Right.
And we actually now help people, get a better idea of their business and their brand and, the things they should have, a podcast, a book, and all those things. And there's a lot of people that have, quote unquote, a book inside of them, but don't know where to begin. And
Yeah.
there's that additional narrative where people say, well, who am I to write a book? Who's going to
Yeah.
read my book? So talk a little bit about the importance for a business owner, an entrepreneur, a business coach, and how impactful having a book that shines a light of their zone of genius,
Yeah.
how impactful that is for their business.
Absolutely. And just like you said, there are a lot of people that have that imposter syndrome. Who am I to write a book? Well, you know what? I think everyone has something to say. I really do. I think we've all been given a God-given ability to be world-class at something, really good at something. And the first task is to figure out what that is. So when people talk to me about, oh, I want to write a book. Really? Why do you want to write a book? I want to tell my story. Okay, yawn. But what then? What then? What do you mean? Well, I mean, are you using this to leverage your business somehow? Hadn't thought about that. Okay, great. So what do you do? And then we talk through all the things. And we talk about what's your call to action going to be. So here's a couple of really great examples. And you and I talked about these privately. Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad was a big call to action to buy his cash flow game. If you read the book, he very generously sprinkles in the idea that you should buy his cash flow game because he keeps referring to it. T. Harv Eker, when he wrote Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, get to my 3-day live event and we'll do a deeper dive on all of this. Now, what he doesn't tell you is that he will sell you his courses and his masterminds and his quantum leap programs. And he does very, very, very well with that. So that's why he can afford to let you come for free for an entire weekend. But the book is the start of it all. A lot of people, I tell people, you know what, you can spin this book into coaching, into courses. Now, you kind of did things the other way around. You had your course first. We built your book from your course, and that redirected people back to your course, which is a brilliant loop for us to complete. But people can build a course. People can do mastermind retreats. I was in a mastermind with somebody once who made $250,000 a year from her expertise in quilting. Quilting. So if you think that your idea is not monetizable, I invite you to rethink that. Reconsider that. And I'm sure her business was built around teaching others to build a business in this industry. It wasn't just, here's how you do it. I was on a mastermind call with somebody a week or two ago, and she said that she had a 7-figure business in her, or 7-figure business, dog sledding. She has a dog sledding business in Alaska. So of course, it's not in Arizona, right? But it's in Alaska, but she has a 7-figure dog sledding business. So you can make a lot of money doing whatever you think you can do. You just have to figure out how to do it. A book can be a great way to introduce people into your world. And so I always talk to people about having a call to action. What do you want this book to be? What do you want people to do, think, act, or believe differently because they read your book? And that gets people thinking. So, I mean, I'm working with a client. We're just wrapping up. His expertise is his company helps people do e-commerce stores on Amazon, Shopify, Walmart, all of that. And we're almost done. And so he wants to introduce people into his world, but his book is about how he had to scratch and claw his way from nothing and figure out how to build a business and how to scale it. So that's a great journey for someone to read. Got another client whose book right now is about how to streamline your business. If your business is woefully inefficient, how can you tighten the ship? So that's another book that I'm close to completing with a client. So just giving you ideas about what you can do. What is it? What is your area of expertise? What is your special sauce? And the other thing that you can also consider too is if someone keeps asking you, how did you do that? That's a clue. That's a topic for your book.
I think the other thing that you mentioned, and it's really something that needs to be highlighted, is where do you want to direct people? And, people talk about the customer value journey. And
Right.
yeah, I did it a little bit backwards. I had the social proof of my course first, which then got turned into a book, and then everything else that has transpired from it. But if anyone has ever read my book, there are calls to action fluttered all throughout it. If chapter 3 is how to optimize your profile,
Yeah.
and at the end of that chapter, I tell you exactly where to go to download the infograph of how to do so, which then backlinks to, if they want to schedule a call, they can. On the back of the book, it's got information about my website and my Facebook group. So a book acts as a great placeholder of how to build the know, like, and trust factor with people. Because again, we all know that no one buys anything from anyone that they don't know, they don't like, and they don't trust. And it's so funny. I still get on calls every week with people that have bought my book, and they're so shocked that it's me that's getting on the phone with them. And I said, why are you shocked? And they're like, well, I thought it was going to be a call center or one of your sales reps. And I'm like, but they're not me. So if my whole book is about connection and creating community, why wouldn't I be the one that's on the phone?
And here's the other thing that you're sort of touching on without actually saying. There is a whole mystique around being an author that people still award you with. I remember when I was resume writing, I bought an author's book about how to build, not just how to write a resume, but she talked about how to build a business around that. And when I hopped on the phone, it was her. I was shocked and very pleasantly surprised. And basically she gave me advice, but she said, here's the name of the book you need to go buy. And I said, can I just buy it from you? And I gave her my credit card and she shipped it out to me. So, and she signed it. That's the other thing too, is you can create celebrity around your brand by having a book, because people still think that it's a big deal. And it is. 80% of people want to write a book and only 1% or less actually get around to doing it. And people just have blockage around that. But you can do this. And if you need help, I can certainly do that. So yeah, there's that air of authority. And so when you talk to people personally, I think that's a huge win, because it's like, if you care enough to actually talk to somebody, people will know that this is how you run your business, and they're more likely to want to work with you instead of working with some random call center.
And the other fact is that we talk about doing things that you can leverage, not only to gain more visibility, but to separate yourself from everyone else. And that's why there's so many people that have websites. There's so many people that have courses. But the two things that I always tell people that they should have to separate themselves from other people, where it really builds that relationship. Number one is a podcast, and that's why you and I both have podcasts.
Yeah.
And number two, writing a book about what your zone of genius is, which we've also both done. You have the Success Profiles book that you wrote, where Kevin Harrington is in it. There's a lot of amazing people that are featured in that book.
Yeah.
But it adds credibility, and people love to see that there is proof in the concept that someone knows what they're doing. And listen, I don't need to be the number one LinkedIn expert in the world. I let the results of my clients speak for themselves. That's why there's 4 whole pages in the beginning of my book that are just pure testimonials that people, they wrote them for me.
Yeah.
And I even did some interviews that were transcribed in that book. So again, making sure that you have that social proof is so important. And anyone can write a book these days. The big thing is this: you brought up an interesting point where, people will say to you, what you're doing is special. What you're doing is one of a kind. What you're doing is unique. How did you do that? And it's an interesting question to be asked, because a lot of people's responses are like, I don't know, I just did it. Well,
it's intuitive.
The fact of the matter is that intuitive doing, there is something there. And if you just sit down, and that's when I realized, I'm like, oh my God, what I'm doing on LinkedIn is actually a system. I created a way of using LinkedIn, but now not only it's in video form, but I can also put this into book form where it's been bought in, I don't even know how many countries at this point. It's on
Yeah.
Audible now. There's an ebook version, and it just allows people to get to know you better because, again, there has to be a point of entry.
Yeah.
If you want to really impact people, they're not going to immediately just go hire you without really knowing you. It's going to be a referral from someone else, or there's going to be that low barrier of entry, which a book is a great barrier of entry for a couple reasons. Number one, people don't have to spend a lot of money to get to know you.
Right.
Number two, it's one of the truest forms of residual income out there.
Yeah.
You write the book once, you get paid for life. And
Yep.
so you don't have to write the book every single time someone orders. You basically
Right.
have print on demand and it goes out. So
Right.
it's not, and what people need to understand is you are not going to make a lot of money writing books. You're not. The money is not in the books. The money is in the relationships that come from writing the books because, like you said, it could turn into a mastermind or a course or a group coaching program or anything that you want to create from it. It's available. So,
Yeah.
Brian, if you had to give someone one simple piece of advice as we start to wind down, they've had the intuitive thought of wanting to write a book, but they don't know where to get started. Maybe they don't have the monetary means to go the route that I did, but they at least want to get the wheels turning in the direction where they could utilize someone like you. Where's a simple place or way or method, so to speak, of how someone can get started going down that road of writing their first book?
Yeah. I was on a nationally syndicated show called The List last year, and my segment was about 3 easy tips that you can use to get started writing a book. Number one, you have to figure out what your topic is. That's obviously number one. That's always the hardest part, though. Figure out when I was writing term papers in school, that was always the hardest part. What am I going to write about? And then once I figured it out, I was able to go. So figure out what your topic is. And we talked about some of the things, what do people ask you about all the time? Let's just say that you're in real estate and you get the same set of questions over and over and over again. Well, your questions and answers could be the basis for a chapter. So you could have like the top 21 questions that real estate agents will answer for you or something. I'm just spitballing here, but something along those. My first book was a student leadership book. And the premise of my book was to outline 21 ways that you can become an excellent leader and a center of influence in your group. So then you have to, basically sketch out what your story is going to be. What's your outline? What are your stories going to be? And a lot of people think, well, I'm just going to tell my whole story. Well, no, it's like playing cards. You have to play your cards strategically. You don't play all of your cards and say, gin, at the beginning of the game. You play one card at a time. So figure out what your best stories are and where strategically do they go? Which chapter do they belong in? Because you don't want to tell your same story 5 or 8, 6, 7, 8 times in the same book. And you don't have to share all of your stories. Some of the stories you have might be better for another book. I mean, you might have more than one book in you. And then number 3 is you have to execute. So write a page or 2 every single day, and you will have a book in several months. Several months will pass whether you write or not. So just write your book. Let's go.
Love that. It's simple, it's actionable, and it's something that you can do on your own. So, Brian, before I get to my last question, how can people find out more about you and everything that you have going on? And if they're really ready to write that first book and they need that help or guidance, how can they contact you?
Great. Well, my website is briankWright.com. That's BRIAN, letter K, last name WRIGHT, briankWright.com. You can learn all about me. If you know that you want to talk to me, call withbrian.com and you'll get on my calendar.
Awesome. And all that information that Brian shared will be available in the description of this episode. So everyone that wants to take action, which I suggest you take action because you guys have been following me for the last few years, and the book that you love and you read as often as you do or have purchased is because of Brian. So I'm a proof of his success that it works. You just have to make that investment. And he helps guide you through all of those steps that you may be hitting a roadblock around that is stopping you from writing that book. So I highly, highly advise you to reach out if you're ready. Now, Brian, final question before we sign off today. What does success truly mean to you?
I love, and I'm going to paraphrase, I love what Tony Robbins says, success is being able to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, whenever you want. And I think it's also about having the time freedom to make the impact in the world that you really want to make.
Yeah, it's something very, very easy. And I've done, God, close to 300 episodes and almost 150 or so interviews over the last 2.5 years. And not one person has said a certain amount of money means success. It's success is a feeling and a lot of time freedom, creating your own schedule, because we get one life. We have to live that life right now. And it should be spent the way that we want to. So,
Right.
Brian, it's a long time coming to have you on the podcast, and I'm glad that we finally made it happen. And I just wanted to, on the air, thank you so much for everything that you continue to do for me and how you helped me really get myself out there with what I was looking to do. And I'm just grateful for you and our friendship, and and obviously the relationship that we continue to build personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And I will continue to refer people to you. And just thank you again so much for being here today.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
So everyone, again, if you're interested in connecting with Brian, all of those pieces of information that Brian mentioned will be in the description of this episode. And I do hope you found this episode helpful and it's moved the needle forward for you. If you do want to write that book, now you know where to go and how to reach out to him. So everyone, please enjoy the rest of your days, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much again for checking out today's episode. And if you are listening through iTunes, Spotify, wherever you are, please leave me a rating and review. Let me know what you loved, what you would like to see improved, or ideas you have for future episodes. And if you are interested in taking your business to the next level, don't hesitate to go to my website, www.scottaaron.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me, where I can learn more about you, your business, what you're struggling with, and how we can work together. And don't forget to check out my wife, Nancy, and mine, our free community on Facebook called LinkedIn Leads for Life. We would love to see you in there. Have a great rest of your day. And thank you everyone for your support. Grateful for each and every one of you.